Hey, what's good, family? Praise the Lord. I have to do some exposure in this video because yesterday I went to a place that I thought I was not going to return to. What ended up happening was I got into a mode that I used to battle with a lot that I've termed passive-aggressive meltdown. And I realize now by the tutelage of the Holy Spirit that it's a spiritual matter. But what would happen in the past is that I would get into these modes with my family, with my friends, with the people I was dating, my relationships. And, 98% of the time I'm fine. But 2% of the time, what would happen is that I would get into passive-aggressive mode. And it was something that my friends and loved ones really just learned to be a part of my character. In fact, my friends, they have a silly nickname for me. They call me Ultimo. They would just call it Ultimo mode. And this passive-aggressive mode, I've come up with a definition for it. And the definition I've come up with is when you are convinced that you are not being respected or appreciated in a situation, and you respond begrudgingly by being emotionally despondent, but technically cordial. So basically what's happening is you feel some type of way in a situation, but instead of communicating or expressing how you feel, you decide to go on with business as usual, but you are internalizing what's bothering you, and it ends up making you nice nasty. That's basically what passive-aggressiveness is. It's nice nasty. And I realize it to be a technique of the Jezebel Ahab coalition. If you're someone who has these spirits oppressing you at any point, or you're subject to these spirits, what will happen is they will come along and they will use this to damage and manipulate your relationships, your friendships, your family, etc. That's his goal. And that's why I've termed this video the passive-aggressive tornado. So I'm going to teach you in this video how they go about doing this, as well as give you an example. In fact, the example what happened yesterday as to why it occurs. So basically, Jezebel, as we know, is a narcissistic spirit. It's narcissistic. It's a perfection-based spirit, and it's very good at fault finding. Jezebel can find a fault, a flaw in any situation. And what happens is, if this spirit is oppressing you in any way, they will look into a relationship that you have, and they will point out every single flaw that individual has, or anytime that individual has wronged you. It will basically make a little mental note, and it's compiling this case, it's building a case against you. And the interesting thing about it is it's a fact-based case, but Jezebel will spin it in such a way where it makes you feel like you're a victim. It's like the entire world is against me. And when Jezebel does this, it convinces you that you're being disrespected or undervalued. So what this spirit will do is it will take facts, but it will twist facts around and give you basically an unrealistic perception of what's really happening around you. You feel like everything is against you, and the Jezebel spirit operates in complete selfishness. But on the flip side, now at the exact same time, you have the Ahab spirit working. And we know Ahab comes from a place of weakness and insecurity. So even though you feel wrong, even though Jezebel has convinced you that the world is against you, that this person has done things and has built this case, Ahab will tell you that you cannot say anything about it. You can't communicate. It convinces you to be passive and non-confrontational. What it essentially does is it muzzles your communication, and it tells you that if you speak up, you're being a jerk, you're being extra, you're being intolerant. And the reason why it tells you that it's being a jerk, because keep in mind, these are working in tandem. It knows that the narcissist part of you is a jerk. So what he's telling you is, don't be a jerk. Don't say anything about that. Just accept it. And basically you end up internalizing what's going on, and the spirit obligates you to begin to interact with your friend, your spouse, your relationship person. It begins to make you try to function around that individual. And what happens is you have two opposing storylines that are completely opposite of one another. Jezebel's giving you a fake storyline. Ahab's giving you a fake storyline. And they're both tugging at you. You're somewhere in the middle. And they are just having a heavyweight fight. It's the narcissist versus the insecure person. And they're going at it. And you're just in the middle getting beat up. And the people around you are getting beat up. And so you begin to operate begrudgingly. You're around someone, but you don't really want to be there, or you're trying to fake it till you make it, basically. And you have some old rapper, you say you got some Anna on your chest. You got some anxiety, some angst that you need to get off of your chest. But because Ahab is a coward, you're not addressing it. And so you're the individual that's being tormented by this entire thing that they got going on. So the result is that simultaneously you're being tormented, resentment sets in, you have two opposing stances, which means that you're now double-minded. Technically, you might be triple-minded, because you got Jezebel here, Ahab here, and you're somewhere in the middle. You honestly don't know where you fall on this spectrum, because both of them are using facts. But you have to, it's not always about facts, it's about communication. You're being pulled on both sides, and this is why I've termed it the tornado, because these two spirits are spinning you around. They're spinning you back and forth, because you're looking over here, you're looking over here. You're the one that's being spent around. And the reason why I call it a tornado is because anyone who's in your path is going to get it. It's not funny, but anyone who's in your path is going to get it. You're like the Tasmanian devil, and those spirits are exuding bad energy. The people around you can feel it. If they have discernment, sometimes they can even see it on you, because you're basically becoming a cancer, and you're affecting the mood of everyone around you. And what its goal is, what Jezebel's main goal is, because Ahab works under her, she wants to isolate you and damage your relationships, damage your friendships, damage your family environment. This is what passive aggressiveness does. And so I'm going to give you all a real life example of what happened. My sister in Christ and I were out. She allowed me she gave me permission to speak on this, because she understands. And so basically, I've known her for about 10 years. And over the course of that 10 years, we've been there for one another emotionally. Just as friends, good friends. And she's someone who was there with me she knew me before I got saved. But when I got saved, this was the person that was with me, the next day after I got saved, the only Christian I even knew to call. And so throughout the years, as friends, as any two friends would do, we bear one another's burdens. Okay. Now, the way I bear burdens is I'll have the situation, and the situation will be heavy, and I'll reach out to her, and she will help me through that situation. The way she bears burdens is she consistently weighs in on matters. And the way she does that is through conversation. So she speaks a lot. She's extremely talkative. And what it does is it has gotten to a place where it weighs on me heavy, because I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the mental capacity to always listen to her speak, because sometimes it's to a place where it's not balanced. It's not a balanced conversation. Sometimes it feels like she's almost talking me into submission. And so over the years, I've harbored that. And the reason I've harbored it is because she's helped me out in situations. So it's almost like, she gave me, it's almost like I borrowed $100 from her, but she borrows $5 from me here and there. And it's kind of like, all right, I don't mind giving you $100, but you keep borrowing $5 every day. You know what I mean? So, but because I still owe her $100 for helping me, I feel obligated to give her $5 each time she comes and asks for it. And so in addition to that, there's been a few times, just as friends are, where she's made some comments that have offended me. But the Ahab in me did not allow me to address those comments. Why? Because the comments were fact-based. And so I would say, well, you know what, even though that offended me, truth is truth. I don't need to address it. I don't want to look weak. I don't want to start anything, so I'm just going to leave it there. But what I realized I did was I internalized it. So the combination of those two made me basically harbor some very dormant resentment towards her. And I would display this resentment in a very passive-aggressive manner. And so what happened yesterday was everything was going fine. Everything was going fine. But a couple weeks ago, she said, you need to take me out. We were going on a sister brother date, and she just said, you need to take me out. So normally when I go out to lunch or dinner with folks, depending on who it is, I'll just pay for them. You know what I mean? Like, she's not broke or anything, but she ain't balling either. So I just as friends, whatever, who cares? I'll pay for it. So I'm under the impression that, we're going to go out to eat. I'm going to pay for it. So the plan was to go to this restaurant, and the restaurant is listed as closing at 8. Closing at 10. She was supposed to get off of work at 7, get to me by 8, and we get there at about 8:30 and eat. Now, I usually don't eat anything after 8 p.m. So Jezebel's building a case here, because what happened was she got off work late, almost like an hour late. And then what happened was, so let me just tell you. So this is the story that Jezebel built. You're paying for this dinner. You don't eat after 8 o'clock, so you're already being inconvenienced. She got off work late, so you all are not going to leave until 9 p.m. The restaurant closes at 10, and it takes you 27 minutes to get there. Are you even going to be able to enjoy this experience? Is it even worth it? These are all the things that are being built up in my mind. So we called a place and asked them, are they still going to be open? They say, yeah, you can come on out. So you would think the problem would be solved. But the anxiety from the case that Jezebel has built has already been setting in. So this is an expensive restaurant. It's not like super expensive, but it's overpriced. Let's just put it that way. There's hardly any parking downtown. And she wants you to drive. So not only are you paying for the meal, you find out that she wants you to drive. And you're just thinking, meet me halfway. And really what happens is Ahab begins to build his case. He says, this is your friend. You owe her. You've been kind of passive aggressive to her lately. So you're indebted to her. You made plans to go. You got to stick to your word. You got to stick to the plans. So why don't you just put the ball in her court? Ask her, does she think that it's still wise for you all to go, and see what she says? So that's what I did, and she said she still wanted to go. So now I'm going on a trip that Jezebel has convinced me is not worth me going, but Ahab has also convinced me that I need to go because I'm now obligated to go. So I'm being tormented. And what's happening is the energy off of me is exuding. And what ended up happening, the result, the end product was that I was a jerk the entire evening. You know, I wasn't like an overt jerk, but I was keeping it cordial. I was trying to hold it together, but I was obviously displeased. And like I said, she knows me, so it's not something that she's not familiar with, but she just isn't aware of the spiritual aspect of it, which I wasn't really fully aware of either most of the time. And so I was a jerk the entire time. The energy I was giving off was horrible, and she was just trying to basically get my mood up and play some worship music to get the spirits off of me like Saul. But that Jezebel spirit, when it gets into that narcissism mode, it becomes very prideful and it does not want to break. What happens is it gets a grip. It gets a grip on your heart. And I mean, when it gets that grip, you know what I mean? It makes you very irritable. It's like you don't want to hear anything. We went through the night with no issues, more or less, but I just wasn't my normal self. I didn't want to pray. She was talking about how good God is. I wasn't interested. That Jezebel spirit does not want you. It kills your witness. It kills your witness. It doesn't make you want to participate in the things of God. You don't have the energy. You don't have the focus. You're just not interested. You're angry. You're upset. You're angry and you want everybody around you to be angry, which is why it's the tornado. So what eventually happened is my energy jumped off on her. And then she started complaining about something. And now I actually became sad because while these spirits are doing what they're doing, Greg actually still knows what's going on. And so now I'm mad because I was just trying to hold it together until I got home. I got home late. You know, I had been dog sitting her dog all day, which was another part of Jezebel's case. When in actuality, I like being around the dog, so that wasn't even an issue. But what Jezebel would do is she would tack something on just to keep piling and piling onto the case. So that Jezebel is hard pressed to let you be free. So the question now becomes, how do you solve this? What's the solution? First and foremost, you've got to get alone. You cannot have this tornado. You can't try to function when you don't have peace about a situation, because you're just going to end up damaging yourself and damaging others. You got to get alone. As long as you're not a danger to yourself, you need to just get alone. When you get alone, you need to begin to worship. You need to ask for prayer, because what's going to happen is Jezebel is going to have you so far away from God in that moment, you're not even going to really want to pray. But you got to have enough sense about yourself to ask somebody else to pray for you, because their prayer can get through when yours can't really get through in that moment. And what will happen is God will acknowledge it, and then he'll give you the breakthrough you need to be able to then pray on your own and get some peace about yourself. You need to open up and communicate, which is killing Ahab. If you have an issue about something, you just need to say it. Like, communicate with folks. Don't be non-confrontational, because all that does is just make matters worse. You need to seek deliverance. If you're being oppressed by these spirits, you got to cast them out of you, or you need to get somebody to cast them out of you. If you're being oppressed, you need to just basically just bind them and just get them away from you, just get them off of you. But if you feel like they're operating through you, you might need actual deliverance. And so you got to make sure that when you get that deliverance, you maintain it. Because I was trying to figure out, how did I get back to this place when I have not been dealing with this for a while? And I can point to probably two things. Recently, I tolerated Jezebel. I ended up having a conversation with someone that I knew I was not supposed to have a conversation with. And even after I had that conversation, I was like, man, I just think I tolerated Jezebel. I hope nothing happens, but something ended up happening, but whatever. I mentioned in another video how I cut off all of my Ahab ties, you know, but this particular friendship that I'm referencing, to a certain degree, I'm Ahabing in this friendship by sitting back and listening to her have these hour-long conversations when I really don't have the capacity to endure these things. So I'm thinking in my mind, you know, I want to be there for you, but you got to get a girlfriend, you got to get a husband or somebody else, because it's not fun for me. And it's not always complaining. Sometimes she'll just call and have long conversations, but the conversations are like so one-sided sometimes. And, you know, I can't do it. So you've just got to open up to that person and communicate what's on your mind. You'll be better off in that friendship or relationship or marriage or whatever it is by addressing an issue than not addressing an issue. Jezebel will convince you of a lot of fake issues. Some of them might be real, but she'll exaggerate them. Ahab will tell you not to address the issues. And that combination is going to result in passive aggressiveness, which we now know to be demonic. If you're someone who is constantly passive aggressive, you really have to take some inventory and figure out what's exactly transpiring, what's driving this. Why can't I get this issue off my chest? Why am I being nice, nasty, or fake or phony towards this individual? And so that's all I have for you in this video, family. I'm going to do another expose on how this operates in relationships. This video, if you don't go through this video probably seems wild. But if you are someone who's been on the giving or the receiving end of what I just spoke about, you might be able to relate. But I can definitely see how you're probably like, man, you know, but that's what it is. And so that's just how it is. So that's all I have for you in this video, family. I pray that you've been edified. I'll put some relevant scripture in the description box below. You all take care and be blessed.